We're standing on a point with a lighthouse at a height of 36 meters. This is the westernmost point of the Republic of Croatia, Gornja Savudrija Point. Nearby lies a settlement carrying the same name. The coastal area abounds in beautiful beaches shaded by pine groves. The sea along the shoreline is shallow, barely 10 meters deep. In the vicinity of the Savudrija lighthouse, we find St. John's Chapel. Once a three-nave Romanesque edifice built in the 11th century, it was remodeled after 1826. In front of the parsonage, in the shade offered by the vine, stands a water well with an ornamented crown. To the south of Savudrija, we find the remains of what was once the town of Sipara. The remains lie, in part, under the sea. In Roman times, it was a settlement ravaged by pirates in 9 AD. The remains of the Roman Empire lying on the seabed have been brought to light thanks to a series of maritime incidents. Today, we dive to a protected site. All that remains are amphora, overgrown in algae, antique wrapping covered in minute grains of sand and silt. We encounter the odd shellfish, half open, filtering water, and a small crab, well camouflaged in its environment, as it gathers minute particles of food. At first glance, the seabed seems deserted, uninhabited, like after the apocalypse. And the sea is not as blue, it's less transparent. Nothing to indicate any form of surprise in this monotonous, opaque expanse. Underwater life is best observed near crags, the Parazoanthus exinella coral, the golden anemone. Shellfish that do not burrow into the sand are experts in camouflage. The St. James shell is a master of deception. Shellfish are sweet morsels. This is why the smooth Venus buries itself in the sand. We swim towards the crag, passing the sandy seabed below us. On the seabed, we encounter a tranquil electric ray. The underwater world of the northern Adriatic is famous for its spider crab, lesser and greater. The Ilionucleus prefers camouflage, while the natural colors of the Hypsilodora sea slug wards off potential predators with the message, "Not edible." Fishing is predominant in Savudrija, and everything revolves around fishing boats and nets. The settlement is surrounded by numerous coves. The waters to the north of Savudrija Bay are shallow, and towards the mouth of the river Dragonja, we come across the Canegra stone quarry. The landscape is lush and gentle. Although shallow and sandy, Istria's waters have their geological phenomena. One of them is the Banjol Cave. It's a cave with 3 chambers. In the central one, we encounter a leopard goby. He approaches us as if complaining about the conger eel that has taken over its crevice. To the left of the central chamber, an opening leading onto a dark, narrow passage takes us to a second chamber, with an opening in its ceiling. Very little life exists in this part of the cave. The right semi-chamber is more open and more exposed to strong waves. Therefore, there's more life here. It's here that we filmed this bright yellow Cornularia coral. It lives on sturdier ground and has 8 tentacles. Sponges of a similar hue cover the ceiling of the cave. Due to erosion, holes and openings were created that let in more sunlight to this part of the cave. In the labyrinth of stone columns and passages, we experienced a rare sight: the brown meager. We leave them to the solitude of the Banyol Cave. A road stretching along the shoreline connects Savudrija to Umag and Boje in the interior. It's a fertile valley known for its orchards and vineyards. It's also the place of origin of the most famous Istrian Malvasia wine. We approach Umag and its ancient core on the peninsula. Before us, we see the city walls and towers dating from the 14th century. On the central square stands the Baroque parish church built in the 18th century. It safeguards sacred monuments. We travel further south to Porec. A town settled in prehistoric times with the Roman castrum as its nucleus, through the centuries, Porec developed and expanded into a town situated on the peninsula. An organized Christian community has existed here since the 3rd century. We're about to dive into the emerald depths surrounding St. John's Lighthouse near Rovinj. The waters here abound in rich undersea life, typical to crag-covered depths. As usual, the most interesting features are found in the crevices and in events that occur before our very eyes. A Symphodus rostratus captures our attention as it feeds. We barely notice another, lighter one approaching. The habits of these fish have not yet been thoroughly studied. We see their behavior as a mixture between defending their nest and courtship. The darker one is probably the male, who tips to one side to reveal his belly. A face-to-face encounter ensues, but ends in flight instead of a kiss. On the seabed, we come across a nest that has been built and is guarded by a male of the species. It's mating season, a time of procreation. The Symphodus rostratus are not the only ones occupied with this feat. In some species, the time of lovemaking can be recognized by their nuptial attire. The axillary wrasse reveals intense coloring. In contrast to the female of the species, the male has blue and yellow stripes. They serve to attract the female to the nest, which they build using algae. The male covers the fertilized eggs with algae and guards them. The brown comber transforms from one that observes to one versed in the art of seduction, and it all begins with a dance. He's expected to show that he's strong enough, healthy enough, and able to create healthy offspring. Other males of the species have to invest far more effort. The magnificent male Mediterranean wrasse builds the perfect nest from algae. The female will lay her eggs here. The rest will be taken care of by the male. This is not a rarity in the fish world, but there are fish species where the male has a harem. The rainbow wrasse are not as considerate. They leave the fertilized eggs to the sea current. The arrival of divers arouses their curiosity. The male is easy to detect. He's significantly larger and more colorful than the commonplace female. In the animal kingdom, males are often more attractive and colorful than the females. In the undersea world, we also find hermaphrodites. We observe two mating, two sea slugs, Bergia verusicornis and Auladelia stephaniaea. It's hard to discern how many of them there are, as they often create entire chains where usually the first in the chain is female and the last is male. Naturally, the result of mating is a sequence of eggs of various hues. The purple Flebellina is perhaps the most responsible parent, as it lays its eggs in long threads and on its food, the eudendrium. The diversity of sea slugs results in a diversity of laid eggs. This is the largest amount of eggs sea snails can lay. They are the eggs of the murex shell. A spring fervor prevails in the undersea world. The male damselfish has found its territory and proceeds to clean it. He will then use a little fish dance to entice the female to the nest, which will then lay her eggs there. The male will strive to entice as many females as possible in order to ensure ample offspring. After the female has laid her eggs, the male will care for them. He'll safeguard them, ward off intruders, and use his powerful fintail to clean the nest and supply it with oxygen. The instinct for survival makes many species experts in construction. The gray wrasse has almost finished building this nest. A female arrives for inspection. While damselfish prefer cleanliness, gray wrasse like holes in the sand which they cover in algae and then wait for the female to lay her eggs. This is the most pedantic male damselfish we have ever encountered. He's cleaned the crag to perfection. No wonder he's attracted so many females. Here we have the young damselfish. They're still neon blue in color. The living world invests the most energy in the procreation of the species. It's as if the meaning of life resides solely on procreation of the species and posterity. And as the young fish and shellfish develop and grow, we can only hope that the sea will be gifted with yet another generation. The old town of Vrsar is situated on a hill 54 meters above sea level. The old town was once encircled by walls. At the small church of St. Anthony of Padua, we find a small Romanesque entrance gate. Carved from ancient Istrian oak, they've safeguarded the entrance to Vrsar since the 12th century. Within the walls and dominating the ancient nucleus, we find St. Martin's Parish Church and Monastery. The bell tower was completed in 1991. The bell tower offers a unique panoramic view of the surrounding isles and crags. In Vrsar Harbor, the largest monument is the Romanesque Church of St. Mary. The deep Lim Fjord is a natural boundary between Vrsar and Rovin. Although named a fjord, Lim is a ria, a drowned river estuary and valley, and is an oasis abounding in life. This is good hunting ground for divers, as well as for the white heron. The Lim Fjord is a protected wildlife reserve. The sea here is less translucent, and the silty seabed reveals an abundance of life forms. In shady areas, the brown tube anemone spreads its tentacles, and its cousin, the Mediterranean coral, feels right at home here. Close up, it looks like a miniature anemone. The Lim Fjord is a haven for organisms that survive by filtering seawater. The walls of the crevices here are lined with various sponges, of which the ever-changing sulfur sponges are the most impressive. Although they resemble sponges, sea squirts are far more developed organisms on the evolutionary scale. The red sea squirt feed in the same manner as sponges. Permanently affixed to their habitat, they catch food through large openings. In these waters, we find yet another unique sea squirt, the Tunicate policitor adriaticus, popularly known as the Adriatic gypsy. Here is an entire colony of this endemic species. Of all the seas and oceans, it's found only here. Despite being less developed than the sea squirt, shellfish apply the same principles. The Lim Fjord is an ideal habitat for them. The seabed of the Limfjord is comprised of sediments of sand and silt. Other organisms are also masters of these waters. One of the largest is the cuttlefish, and as we slowly sink into the waters of the Limfjord at night, our reflector lights reveal the intelligent cuttlefish. They'll use them to assist them in hunting. There are also other active hunters like this young conger eel, who could easily catch the small and well-camouflaged cuttlefish. But the cuttlefish has a few tricks up its sleeve as well when it comes to predators. The spider crab scavenges in the sand. The Erythrea spinifrons would be satisfied with this mere morsel. However, not all the residents are creatures of the night. The wrasse has drifted into a deep slumber, as has the bream. Night is slowly turning to day. The morning rays bring peace to the most powerful of hunters. Day has just dawned, and its early rays awaken Saint Euphemia as she watches over Rovin. For the fishermen, the day is almost over. They still have to clean their nets, sort their catch, feed the seagulls, and prepare for the following night. Rovin comes to life in a mist brought by yesterday's southerly winds. It promises to be a nice day on the small cobbled streets of the town. Rovin was once an island. The narrow canal separating it from the mainland was covered in 1763, and what was once a bridge today is a square. It's accessed from the Franciscan monastery that was once the mainland and looked out to the developing Rovin Peninsula. All streets gravitated towards the Church of Saint Euphemia, Rovin's patron saint, which lies on the hilltop. People entering the town had to pass under Balby's Arch. The small cobbled streets to the north are also interesting, as they end at the waterfront. Only a few coastal towns can boast such a direct coexistence with the sea and such a specific culture. We continue our ascent to the Baroque Church of Saint Euphemia, where we find the preserved remains of this martyr. A bronze statue of the martyr on the church's bell tower looks over and protects the church and this coastal town. Inside the church, we find a sarcophagus with the remains of the martyr Saint Euphemia. Strong winds and waves prevail at the end of the day. The batanas, the unique fishing boats indigenous to this town, remain in the harbor. There will be plenty of fishing tonight. The seagulls must be patient. Perhaps one of the greatest maritime disasters in the Adriatic was the sinking of the Barangouch. The ship was built in England in 1908 for the largest shipping company of the Adriatic, Lloyd Austria. It measured 84.5 meters in length and 11.8 meters in width. Today, its bow is home to this large forkbeard. Its steam engines ran at 4,600 horsepower and developed a speed of 17 knots, which even today is deemed to be a good speed. The anchor rests. The scorpionfish conceals itself before fleeing. This once modern vessel was the pride of Austria's passenger liners, and its route was from Kotor to Trieste and back. On August 11, 1914, it embarked from Kotor upon its last voyage. The vessel was packed with passengers. War had just broken out, and many were fleeing the north. The captain of the Baron Gauch had a list of harbors where entrances were mined. The weather on August 13, 1914 was ideal, humid, and a calm sea. The passengers cooled themselves off with water. The captain had not received notification from the military that mines had been placed near the entrance of the Rovin harbor. The vessel hit a mine off the waters of Rovin. In a matter of minutes, the vessel sank, pulling with it passengers who swam in its vicinity. Yet another factor was the demise of many. The vessel ran upon mazout. Upon impact, the liquid covered the surface of the sea, creating a huge black sticky mass, which made it impossible for the passengers to swim to safety. An eerie silence prevails in the salons at the vessel's stern, which were filled with passengers before the catastrophe. The citizens of Rovin witnessed the event but were unable to come to their assistance, as only military circles knew the exact location of the planted mines. The official number of those that lost their lives that day is 274, but it's believed that there were twice as many victims. Captain Winter was charged, but his guilt was never proven. The preserved remains are now overgrown with new life. Sponges, moss, anemone, coral, and algae. It's now a habitat too and offers a new beginning for various organisms and species. Today, it seems as if the sinking of the Baron Gauch marked the end of the glory of the days of the Austrian Empire, which was soon to vanish forever. But life here continues, indestructible and miraculous. We leave the northern region of the Croatian undersea world and the magnificent images of Istria. Until recently, it was believed that Krk was the largest Croatian island, but measurements show that the island of Cres is by 500 meters. The Krk Bridge connecting the island to the mainland has brought it closer to the traveler. It connects the island's southern tip, one that is more fertile and more densely populated, while the southern region is a barren limestone plain. It's here that we find the Baszczanska Draga Valley. This is where the spiritual path begins, which Croats have walked for almost 1,000 years. From Baška, with its old streets, red roofs, terraced entrances, and beautiful pebble beaches, we move on to Jurandvor. This is the Baszczanska Ploče, or Baška inscription, one of the oldest documents to be written in the Croatian language. The tablet was a gift inscribed in the Glagolitic alphabet, which mentions King Zvonimir. It was found in the Church of St. Lucy, which belonged to the Benedictines. Krk was once an important center of Glagolitic literacy, and numerous Glagolitic scripts are preserved here. The island was once the heritage of the Frankopan family, the Counts of Krk. The sea was certainly a source of sustenance for the islanders. We had to learn more about the western shoreline of the neighboring island of Plavnik. Steep drops covered in a tapestry of life. Sponges, Gorgonian, and an unusually large colony of Sidnium elegans. We also find it on the sandy seabed. Such sights attract fish, and sea life here is live with school upon school of fish. But we return to the crag. Under the Alcyonium, we find yellow sponges. The sulfur sponge conceals itself, a small gorgonian in the midst. And this is why it's alive with sea life. We are carried by a strong current that swirls around this fake coral. It extends its branches deep into the current, a current that carries life. Morsels of food, numerous organisms, and nutritional substances that pass by us. And this is what makes these depths so lively and colorful. Gorgonian are unusual life forms, which we will often encounter during our dives off Krk, and they in turn will tell us something about the sea depths. The most stunning view of Verbnik is from the sea. A 50-meter limestone hillock makes this charming town an unforgettable sight of harmony and beauty. We descend a steep road to reach the harbor. The Verbnik fields extend as a backdrop. Here, viniculture prevails and vegetables and fruit are cultivated. The most famous wine produced is the Verbnik Žlahtnina. The island of Krk has preserved its archaic hamlets with stone shelters, sheep, and donkeys. We also took a look at the groves of ancient olive trees, the mythical plant of the Mediterranean. From the steep slopes of the northeastern shoreline, we dive into the shallow waters off Tenki. Concealed beneath the isolated cliffs soaring above the sea, we find the lobbies, galleries, towers, and gazebos of the fish world. On the edge of these two worlds, the horizontal sandy depths and the vertical cliffs, we encounter a rare sight to these waters, a colorful brown comber, somewhat confused by a school of young fish as it swims by. The absence of any larger specimens allows him to peacefully flaunt his grandeur before us, but always close to a hole on the seabed. It's the latter that attracts our attention. This small area reveals interesting sea creatures like the black-faced blenny. The bristle star, with its 5 snake-like arms, moves at an impressive speed. Its relative, the blue star, may have more arms, but the bristle star is the fastest among the starfish. Nevertheless, all of them instill fear in a shellfish. The St. James shell will even choose to brave the waters in order to escape this hungry fiend. As it scavenges the seabed, for the Noah's Ark shell, the best thing to do is to close itself in a shell. But there are also fast shellfish, like this small flame scallop. This time round, the rainbow wrasse has lost the race. The hole is the safest solution. And then there are unusual ornaments on the seabed. Living lace, colonies of small bryozoa. The bustle and frenzied feeding caused by the rainbow wrasse has driven yet another resident from its shelter under the rocks. The Adriatic stonefish, or scorpion fish, is an unusual fish, frequently found in these waters despite its preference for seclusion. As we swim to the surface, surrounded by an array of silvery bodies, we manage to make out a 2-banded sea bream. What used to be some 20 smaller villages lining the western coast of the island today represent the most developed village of Malinska. It is rich in historic monuments. We'll name only one: the St. Mary Magdalena Convent, built by Glagolitic priests, and a church of the same name erected in the 15th century. Here we also find an abundance of valuable works of art. Among them, the polyptych of the brothers Girolamo and Francesco de Santa Croce. The Biseroico Grotto near Rudine is a gallery of natural ornaments fashioned by the limestone and water over the centuries. It reaches a depth of 110 meters. Only birds fly over the Velebit Canal, where the sea is colder and reaches a depth of 60 meters. Heavy rains cause waters from the Bashka Bay to flow into the canal and create surface currents. Thus, Kirk has 2 lakes, the Omishal Lake to the north and the Ponikve Lake in the island's central region. The largest bird population is found on the neighboring island of Pervic, which is an ornithological reserve. It is also a nesting ground for the griffon vulture, the sharp-beaked sovereigns of the skies, with a wingspan of up to 2.5 meters. According to folk legend, they are the sparrow hawks, Gyp fulvus. Omishal lies on the island's northern shore. Here, early Christianity in Europe left its mark. On the shores of Sepin Bay, we find the remains of an old Christian basilica. The sea lashes the walls of this edifice, yet it perseveres, much like the Benedictine prayer: pray and work. We now take you to the depths to tell you the tale of colors under the sea, to the Peltatsis, or the Greek as it's locally known. We've taken the same dive by day and night, following the ship's mast that reaches up to some 10 meters below the surface. The tale of the colors under the sea is as colorful as the rich spectrum of sunlight permeating the sea depths which allow it to be. Unfortunately, not all of the colors of the spectrum have the same power to reach the depths, and we watch them slowly dissolve before our eyes. But this is where technology comes into play. Under artificial lighting, with a color temperature spectrum of up to 5,500 Kelvin, we replicate natural colors under the sea. By night, our lights have a limited scope, and as there's no sunlight, what we do see are true colors. The colors gradually vanish, first red and yellow, followed by the rest, until all that remains are blue-green hues. Observing and filming underwater by night is a far more captivating experience. A spiny squat lobster and octopus guarding its eggs are an exceptionally vivid and colorful sight. As is the glimmering natural beauty of this coral, the Epizoanthus arenaceus. The sea is a challenging media for the cameraman, filled with snares not found on land. The challenge lies in the arrangement and choice of lighting, in the sea particles and what depths we want to catch on film. But the strength of our reflector lights is often weaker than that of sunlight. Perhaps the greatest problem encountered when making underwater footage lies in the discrepancy between natural sunlight and artificial lighting. If sunlight is not stronger at a depth of 30 meters, we will not get natural colors. They will not register, or they will seem dull. But if we increase the artificial lighting, we'll get the true colors of this underwater world. We enter the ship's cargo area from the bow. The Pelastus had a 1600 GRT and was built in Germany in 1952 for a Greek shipping company. It measured 60 meters in length, 9.3 meters in width, and 4.2 meters in height. On its last voyage, it was transporting lumber. We're now on the bridge. Here we discover a large school of fish and numerous other residents of the sea. The vessel is still in good shape. Details are easier to discern at night as our concentration is focused due to the limited area that is bathed in light. With a little patience and by monitoring movement, we detect the existing nightlife on the vessel's bridge. The spiny squat lobster is on watch. It occasionally chews on some algae. We switched to natural lighting as we explored the stern. The ship had a crew of 12. During a storm on the 8th of January 1968, she hit the rocky coast off Shiloh with her left bow. 4 members of the crew survived. It is in the crack that caused the ship to sink that we now find the home of the conger eel. A small squid swims to and fro in front of it. The vessel's propeller and rudder lie at a depth of 33 meters. The best vantage point at the bow is taken by a scorpionfish and alcyonium. We slowly swim upwards following the ship's mast. Today, we encounter new crew members. Black-faced blenny, two-banded sea bream, whitebait, damselfish, wrasse, brown combers. A lively feast on this artificial underwater bank. The incredible pre-Romanesque church of St. Dunat near Punat stands like a service tree, fashioned in stone and overgrown in vegetation. It has a cross-shaped ground plan and cupola, the work of an unknown master mason. It is one of many on the island, preserving the modest yet original building skills of distant centuries. We have to navigate a little sea to reach the small island of Koshliun. Covered in rich Mediterranean vegetation, it offers a moment of pleasure to the body and soul. Once Benedictines, today Franciscans, continue to nurture the divine concept of the merit of man and nature. The church and museum safeguard the local heritage, a rich ethnographic collection and local folk dress, exalted and dignified as were the women whose hands wove and ornamented them. We also visit a small chapel located in a park of lush vegetation that has a manger dating from the 16th century. Koshliun arouses pride in the bygone centuries of Croatian history. In Punat, we take a look at the old houses, with their massive terraced entrances, lined one after another. They were built to man's measure. Man had to erect stone habitats, while nature catered to the fish. For centuries, the porous karst has created caves, crevices, and holes. They're ideal hiding places for octopi. Without them, they would have nowhere to lay and guard their eggs. And below, where the crag ends in a soft sandy seabed, is the home of the Sabella fan worm. They pick spots where strong currents bring in food. Even smaller holes are a castle to the minute Paraclimenes amethystius shrimp. And if its entrance is guarded by an anemone, it makes for an ideal abode. Truth be told, they cannot make do without the protection of the sea anemone, as they measure a mere 3 centimeters in all. The rusty blenny likes holes in more shallow waters, and has a strong bite despite the fact that it feeds off algae. On the sandy seabed, we discover numerous species of goby. This is a slender goby, which is very common to these waters. The goby outnumber the rest of the fish and are found in various sites. This is a young leopard goby, often found in underwater caves. And as for this adult leopard goby, the reason why it carries such a name is obvious. The same applies to this red-mouthed goby, which prefers the crag. It stands its ground outside the cave, observing the depths, and the Antedon Mediterranea as it falls to the sea bottom. The caves off Kyrk are not at all narrow. Some are big enough to accommodate the now extinct Mediterranean monk seal. The town of Kyrk lies on the western coast of the island, to the west of Punat Bay. We enter Kyrk with its majestic fortification wall and bastion. They're drenched in history. From Roman times to additions built from 1118 onwards, during the reign of the Frankopan counts, and during the Venetian rule in the 18th century, until the fall of Venice. Before the advent of the Frankopan counts, Kyrk was called Kurikum, Kuritka, and later Vekla. With the arrival of the Croats, the town and island was renamed Kyrk. Today, Kyrk's great heritage is evident only in part. The old square, the bell tower, and St. Mary's Cathedral, which was erected on foundations dating back to the 5th century. Its interior is a reminiscence of the past, notably the silver altarpiece. Man left his mark on the stone, which nature then concealed by covering it with intersecting creations of life forms. The numerous colonies of sulfur sponges serve as an introductory to our tale. In order to see the true beauty of these depths, we need to pass through a secret labyrinth. We are at the Kamenjak Langusta dive site. The sun-bathed shallow waters are ideal breeding grounds for algae. We move on in search of Tsindaria. And there they are. A cuckoo wrasse swims in its vicinity. After the next vertical ascent, we know we're on the right track. Schools of small fish, whitebait, damselfish, and rainbow wrasse are the first signs of a healthy sea, as are the large colonies of Parazoanthus axinelle. And they're only an introduction to what we have named the Gorgonian paradise of the Croatian undersea world. We may not have the coral reefs typical to tropical seas, but we do have an abundance of Gorgonian soft coral. Their beauty and lush colors attest to a healthy habitat. To some, the red horny coral is the most beautiful, while to others, it's the yellow sea fan, the red coral, the alcyonium, or the white sea fan, to name but the most common and stunning Gorgonian types in the Adriatic. Two-banded sea bream are frequent visitors to such slowly vanishing localities. The diversity and size of the fish population can be directly related to coral, and the same applies to Gorgonian. Coral reefs and fields of Poseidonia, alongside Gorgonian-covered crags, are extremely important for all the undersea life. They are primarily proof of the purity of the currents that wash them, and also serve as safe havens and breeding grounds. Unfortunately, their prevalence is declining, and with them, we're not only losing these fragile Tsindaria. The large Eudendrium is rare and inhabits slopes prone to strong currents, despite its seemingly transparent and fragile structure. The diversity found in the undersea world is vanishing from day to day, in silence and into oblivion. Therefore, we need to admire the flora and fauna of our undersea world, this time in the waters off the island of Krk, which we leave accompanied by a school of blotched pickerel, whose colors fade as soon as it is removed from the sea. Among the thousands of islands, isles, and rocky islets in the Adriatic Sea off the coast of Croatia, choosing the largest one is quite easy. But there's one island barely visible on a navigational chart, which is unusual due to three facts. It's the smallest, the lowest, and the most densely populated island. It's the island of Krapanj. It's only 360 meters from the mainland. As we approach, it seems like a living being covered in green vegetation, with woods on the northern side of the island. But we plan to disembark on the eastern side, in the town of Krapanj. Krapanj has everything that befits a small town: a church and a monastery, a town clock, a square, streets, and most importantly, it's inhabited. When the Turks raged in these regions, the inhabitants from the mainland sought shelter here. Surrounded by the sea, their descendants live here and are keepers of ancient crafts. We're diving near the Isle of Smokvica, a giant stone wedged in fine sand, exposed to the currents. It's a perfect place to nurture life that has created a great culture on a small isle. The most visible are yellow organisms, colonies of life, and one special class has marked Croatian. The undersea crags are full of holes and long antennae protrude from them, spiny lobsters. We're being watched by these cautious lobsters that have no pincers. This forkbeard comes out from its hiding hole to see what's happening, but we are in search of sponges. The undersea crag that rises from the sandy seabed is covered in sponges in various bright colors. This is an ideal habitat for the common two-banded sea bream, most probably because of the abundance of small crabs. And while fishing was the predominant occupation on most islands, the inhabitants of Croatian turn to harvesting organisms that spend their lives immobile on crags, such as these, sponges. They're more abundant in places where they're exposed to sea currents that bring these sponges the food they need. Just under the surface of this undersea crag, we discover unusual evidence of the diversity of life here. These small white flowers are tube worms. It would be quite easy to mistake them for plants, but, in fact, they're creatures for whom mobility is not a necessity. Never before have we seen so many tube worms inhabiting one place. We discover the reason for Croatian's fame at a small gallery. Sponges. In order to harvest them, the inhabitants of Croatian needed to become versed divers. The art of harvesting sponges was apparently brought to the island by Father Antun, a Greek from Crete. These photographs are testimony of the golden age of Croatian. At the beginning of the century, there were two guilds. Advanced technology brought diving equipment to Croatian. Heavy equipment that was only for the fittest, and so progress made diving easier, whereas the old equipment, which was once used, is now part of the museum collection. Not long ago, blackboards in schools were wiped down only with real sponges. Today, they've been replaced by artificially produced sponges. There are fewer and fewer sponge harvesters. But the inhabitants of Croatian will not give up. They safekeep their equipment and their tradition. The older generation trains the younger generations to try their hand at diving as it was once done. This is the first time in 20 years that someone is putting on heavy lead boots. By dropping down into the undersea world in equipment that was once used, the old tradition has been revived. Taking a step on the seabed in lead boots is difficult. And while the modern-day diver, swift and light, depends only on a bottle of oxygen, the life of this inhabitant of Croatian depends on the hands of his unrelenting team that has to constantly pump air down to the diver. In one hand, he holds a rope for communicating with the boat. There's so much symbolism for returning to Croatian. Good luck to you, diver, Kiko. He seeks out sponges in this hole. Let's follow him. Under these conditions of diving, it was not easy to find sponges. The class they were looking for resembled a rock. With the aid of artificial lighting, it's possible to discover the opulent diversity and beauty of this ancient species of undersea creature. For a long time, people thought they were plants because they live attached to one place. With no muscles or nerves or specialized organs, the sponge belongs to one of the most primitive types of multicellular organisms. They consist of a number of types of cell structures that result in simple forms. Very often, their outer appearance is conditioned by their habitat, and so they take on the form and shape of the environment they inhabit. The red branches of the axinella, or perhaps the special and almost unique constructions of these tube-like formations in a variety of colors. The plethora of colors has covered the bottom of the sea for over 500 million years. Colors are everywhere. They're to be found on the stony crags, the sandy bottom, and among the fields of Poseidonia that look like sea oranges. They can be inauspiciously gray like the Spongia arganicinia or elephant's ear sponge, or even blue in color like the beautiful Anchinoa tenacior. The most well-known are colonies of yellow sulfur sponges. The name is derived from their sulfur yellow coloring, but when taken out of the sea, the color fades. These sponges are good hiding places for the scorpion fish. Sponges have few natural enemies. They mostly serve as a resting or hiding place. There are organisms that prefer to make their homes on sponges, like the Parazoanthus axinella sea anemone, so that the axinella is barely visible. Another axinella is host to squid eggs. The sponge's greatest enemy are certain types of slugs. The black and white Discordis atromaculata slug feeds on the Petrosia ficiformis sponge. However, sponges have the extraordinary ability of regeneration. The sponge harvesters of Croatian knew this, so they never harvested the entire sponge. This yellow snail is Tylodina perversa. It too lives and multiplies on the sulfur sponge. Sponges serve as good camouflage. If you come across the red cram, you might even get a chance to see the shell of a Lentidium mediterraneum shellfish, or a Noah's Ark shellfish. Numerous pores and holes are characteristic of all sponges. The seawater enters the small pores bringing food and oxygen, small living or dead organisms, and then the seawater is expelled through the larger holes. Today, over 5,000 species of sea and 150 species of freshwater sponges have been identified. There are about 100 in the Adriatic Sea, and one of the most beautiful is the pink Haliclona mediterranea, which is endemic to the Mediterranean. Although famous as sponge harvesters, the people of Croatian also harvested coral. Due to its excellent craftsmanship and quality, another island became famous for coral, the island of Zlarin. Considerably larger than Croatian, to this day it safekeeps the tradition of harvesting coral and craftsmanship in coral. The old masters will show us only part of their skills in the museum dedicated to coral. The secret of how to produce finely fashioned original pieces is only revealed to those who will continue the craft. Coral continues to be worn as a decoration. Its beauty is an integral part of the Croatian folk costume, even in the north of Croatia. Various other decorative objects are made of coral: trees, bowls, buckles. However, the most difficult part is the actual dye for this beautiful creature. Once upon a time, they were more numerous and accessible and were harvested with the aid of a special net. Today, these nets are kept in the museum, as coral has become a rare species and grows at inaccessible depths. Žirje is an island on the route to Blitvenica. The last in a series of isles and rocky islets off the coast of Croatia, and situated closer to Italy, is the island of Blitvenica, which also has a lighthouse. This is where we'll dive next. In its undersea world, we're in search of coral, and especially red coral. We encounter numerous Gorgonian and soft red coral, which would indicate the conditions here are ideal for the growth of coral. And the vertical crag is truly an ideal habitat for these colonies. Small creatures that look like a tree and that can be over 1 meter in height. This yellow branch attracts our attention among the forests of growth. Underneath it is something that only looks like coral. This is the Alcyonium coralloides, soft coral that often grows on dead colonies of sponges. The only thing that differentiates it from coral is its soft structure. Red coral can only be found in inaccessible places. And we found one such place. At the top of this hole, coral has spread its white polyps out to the sea current. Its magnificent red structure makes it unique, but also an endangered species. It was once possible to see coral at depths of 30 meters. Today, it can only be found at depths of over 70 meters. It's difficult to dive at these depths. As we surface, the shallows offer us yet another surprise. A sea cucumber is lazily going its way. A large date shellfish is clearly visible in its stony home. They're both prey to starfish. The first inhabitants of Krapain were fishermen who built stone huts in order to store their equipment. Today, all that's left are the ruins of the first settlement, an old fishing village. The little arable land left on this island is jealously guarded within these walls. What is it that the inhabitants of this island do to earn a living? They have olive groves, fields of Mediterranean plants, and orchards. The old oil plant still exists in Krapain and is used to press olives in the traditional way. The spiritual aspect of life on the island has not been neglected either. Franciscan monks have been here since 1446, when they began to build the Church of the Holy Cross. The votive painting of Our Lady of Krapain stands on the left altar. It is a masterpiece painted by a local artist. She is the patron saint of all the inhabitants of Krapain, Stella Maris. In the harmoniously built cloister, we find ourselves in the shadows of a Renaissance passage. Plain arcades support the walls of the monastery. Krapain is surrounded by a series of islands, islets, and rocky isles. Although the sheer crags drop into the sea, in places there are shallows covered in sand, which is enough for the Poseidonia to take root. This is enough for other species to appear on these barren rocks, like the gray wrasse. Fan mussels also seek to grow on these fields. Unfortunately, this one died and became a home for this inquisitive blenny. It seems in two minds as to whether the fan mussel is a safe home. A small black scorpionfish lives on a neighboring fan shellfish. As yet, the fields of Poseidonia seem like a daunting forest, but when it matures into an adult, it will be in his realm. The feather star, a distant relative of the starfish, catches food brought in by the current among the Poseidonia and algae. Deeper down, there's no sunlight, but there is life. It lights up under our flashlights. In the shallows, where the boundaries of land and sea continuously change, we encounter an organism that enjoys the pounding of the waves and the changing currents. The beadlet anemone, a sea anemone of beautiful colors. Croatian today has a population of 258. Their customs and pastimes of old are the way in which they pass their time. Photographs serve as memories of the past, glory days when coral and sponge harvesters existed on the island. These mementos remain preserved in the local songs. It's easy to cross the island and visit its history. All you have to do is take a trip. Unlike the rest of the tourists, we're planning a trip to the Undersea world. When night falls, we drop down into the Undersea world around Croatian. In the darkness before us, our artificial lights only manage to light up a few meters in front of us. Eyes, which are so important for us to discern the world around us, are also an important sense for many other species. The eyes of various fish caught in the intense artificial light do not answer the question as to whether or not they're sleeping. Here's an octopus on a sponge, and we only see one of its eyes. Like a periscope, the eye of a well-camouflaged soul peeps out from under the sand. Eyes are sometimes the only thing that enable us to discover a well-hidden fish. These emerald eyes belong to a lizardfish. And then it strikes, using our lights for its hunting. The lizardfish has an agile body and is a good swimmer, but judging by its mouth, it likes to lie in wait for its prey. It's difficult to avoid the teeth of this fish. This sole is the same color as the seabed and is seeking a better place to ambush its prey. Once our lights hit this octopus, it flees, seeking a better place for hunting. However, it too may become prey. Hidden inside this hole, it takes on a defensive stance. Hidden like this, it may only be found by another octopus. And if it's mating season, then the male of the species will do his utmost to find a female and win her over. Well camouflaged, the male extends his third tentacle from the right in order to mate. This will result in a myriad of small octopi. this shrimp and black scorpion fish are seeking shelter. A starfish, caught out in its nightly foraging, digs in. Although it does not have eyes like the fish, it does have the ability to sense changes. The changes brought on by light and darkness, and our artificial light in the middle of the night is like sunlight. Good night. Our last moment before leaving the beauty and the secret life of the islands of Croatian and Zlarin and their undersea worlds. The island of Šolta is separated from its neighboring island Brač by the Strait of Split. To the north, the Split Channel separates it from the mainland, and the Šolta Channel from the island of Drvenik. Šolta was first mentioned in Greek times when it was called Olinth. The Romans named it Solenta, and in the 14th century we find the name Solta named in the Statute of Split. The island's southern limestone shoreline is precipitous and rocky terrain. According to local legend, Teuta's palace once lay above the overlooking Bay of Seine. In hopes of winning her favor, fishermen returned a part of their catch to the sea, throwing it to all four directions. They gave back to the sea a fraction of what they had caught. But the sea would sometimes demand more. Many vessels have sunk to the bottom of the Šolta Channel. The fishing vessel Ribolovac encountered a similar fate. We dived down to the wreck of what was once the largest fishing vessel of the Croatian fleet. Today, it rests on the sandy seabed off Pellegrin Point. It reclines peacefully on its starboard, waiting for the tooth of time and the sea to finish it off. The vessel lies at a depth of some 20 meters, measuring 28 meters in length. It's a major attraction to all scuba divers. At its stern, we find the helm rudder, a propeller, and new organisms. Sabella sea fans swaying in the current like palm trees. Once feared by all fish, this vessel now provides them with a safe haven. With time, its paneling and wooden frame will fall to decay, and all that will remain will be the segments made of metal, the windlass and metal rigging. This vessel, which was once vibrant with life, now faces a solitude that reveals a unique undersea world visited by numerous divers. The white-spotted octopus will soon lose its appealing haven. Fleeing is not its only defense. Like numerous other sea species, the octopus also uses various toxins for defense and hunting. We embark upon a journey to discover the toxic species of the undersea world. The white-spotted octopus can be easily recognized by its spots and long tentacles. The moment it senses danger, it will employ its secret weapon, chemical warfare. It envelops itself in a dark, strong-smelling cloud as protection and vanishes, propelled by its powerful tentacles. Some species are like little toxic chemical plants that produce substances which are used for defense or hunting. Many of them are known to man due to results ensuing encounters with them. The jellyfish uses its toxins for hunting, but when it encounters humans, the outcome is often painful for the latter. It's due to this feature that the jellyfish belong to a group of sea creatures called stingers or anemones. The group includes some of the most beautiful organisms found in the sea, gorgonian and coral. This is a colony of coral polyp. Small polyps use the same principle as jellyfish. They're armed with specialized stinging structures called nematocysts. The stinging cells are tubes filled with toxins. When touched, the reaction is the fastest one found in nature. In a matter of microseconds, the stingers fire small harpoons and poison. The sea anemone, or the large polyp, also belongs to this group. Some of them prefer not to live in colonies, but they do tolerate other species that use them for protection. The anemone's tentacles offer an ideal hideaway for this small shrimp. The hermit crab plants anemone on its shell. This is the most toxic of all sea anemones, the Aletia mirabilis. Anemones vary in size and shape. Some measure only a couple of centimeters, like the Aglaophenia, and some resemble feathers or tree-like structures, like the Eudendrium. The small Flabellina sea slug peacefully chews at the colony of Eudendrium. It's not only a source of food, but also offers its protection. It can ingest the stinger cells and transfer their poison to its feathery tips. In this manner, it too becomes an anemone of sorts. The coloring of other sea slugs send out a unique and simple message: not edible. By ingesting the toxins of other organisms, sea slugs use them for their own protection. The sea cucumber exposes its sticky internal organs, its Cuvier tubes. The sea worm is armed with minute white glass-like hooks, which can cause a strong pain, irritation, or even paralysis. Therefore, it's no wonder that it's not concerned by the dangers lurking in the depths. And this is one of the better-known poisonous fish, the scorpion fish. What you have to look out for are the poisonous spines found on its head, dorsal fin, and anal fin. The spines are lined with venom sacs. Those spines found around its gills are not poisonous. The spotted weaver employs a similar weapon, but its poisonous spines are located in different areas. In the first dorsal fin and those lining its gills, which are short and thick, the greater weaver is armed with a similar weapon. Their poison has a similar effect to that of snakes, perhaps not as potent, but definitely one of the most dangerous to man. Nature has bestowed a similar defense mechanism upon many of the weaker swimmers in the sea. The The stargazer is no exception. He too is a bad swimmer and hunts by ambushing his prey. His only protection are the clearly visible spines on either side of his body, those directly above its pectoral fin and in a tube protruding from its dorsal fin. The poison it emits has not yet been studied in depth, but according to some, it can be life-threatening. This is perhaps a fish that is infamous for its poison, the moray eel. Both its bite and blood are highly toxic, and alongside its aggressive nature, it belongs to the most dangerous sea residents. Fortunately, most of the above-mentioned poisons are thermally unstable, which means that high temperatures render them ineffective. The western region of Sholta is covered in maquis forests. In the island's interior, we find a 2-kilometer-wide karst valley, which extends some 6 kilometers. The mild climate and rainfall have made the valley an ideal grazing ground and habitat for goats and sheep. Maslenica Cove is a protected group of isles and crags, and as such is a good shelter and anchor point for smaller vessels. It's from here that the fisherman Vice will sail towards Teuta's palace at the end of the day to cast his nets. The dusk transforms Vice from a fisherman to a self-taught artist. Tomorrow, as soon as the sun is up, the fishermen will pull their nets. Life here is straightforward, harsh, yet beautiful. The day dawns overcast, the waves are rising, but in the depths a stillness prevails. There aren't even any currents, which is clearly visible on the net that stands erect and motionless. It's caught on a large crag. The crag on the sandy seabed has perhaps saved the lives of many a fish, and is also home to our known friends of the deep. The number of white scars on this conger eel attests to his age and turbulent lifestyle. The small tubes above his upper lip are nasal openings. In the dark cave, we find antenna shrimp. The conger eel will not harm them, as antenna shrimp are known as cleaners. They pick parasites off fish. On the sandy seabed, this underwater bank is a true oasis sustaining life. Its residents defend it as it's their habitat. One of the smallest residents and most unrelenting in its defense is this small black-faced blenny. A seabed that abounds in small stones but lacks crevices inspires its residents to undertake feats in construction. The octopus has 8 tentacles and builds a sturdy nest. The female sits on the eggs, ventilating the sea through its gills with powerful exhales. We follow a school of damselfish to a neighboring hole. We observe their somewhat erratic behavior. They seem frightened, as if something is lurking from above. The long, gray body of the conger eel seems somewhat confused by all the commotion. We leave them to the tranquility found in the depths. Donje Selo and Srednje Selo are villages located in Šolta's interior. In Donje Selo, we find the remains of the pre-Romanesque church of St. Jela. From here, a road leads to the village center and the church of St. Martin. From the north, we see Vela Straža Peak at 208 meters. We're surrounded by vineyards and olive groves, forests, and an abundance of bird species. Here we find birds not found on any other neighboring island. Some 17 different species nest here. If we're lucky, we might see a small screeching owl. You could say that it's a symbol of the island. It can be heard in the late afternoon hours, at dusk, and at night. Arriving in Grohote, we encounter a settlement that has always been the beating heart of the island. A peaceful atmosphere permeates the ancient architecture. In front of the parish church, we see the remains of ancient times. A basilica with its baptistry, the lid to an ancient sarcophagus, and fragments of a capital. The remains of the pre-Christian church of St. Stephen are evidence of the town's significance and long history. Another interesting feature is the chapel, built into the wall of this old stone house. In the midst of the fields stands the preserved Church of St. Michael, with its ancient frescoes. The islanders have preserved ancient traditions, cultures, and customs. They still cultivate vineyards and olive groves. The snails love the rain. They glide hastily to reach the wet leaves. Šolta by night abounds in a rich undersea world. The Antedon Mediterranea extends its tentacles. Some sites are favored by the Sabella fanworm. It shyly stretches its feathery tentacles. Spread out, they resemble palm leaves swaying in a strong wind. Under our strong lighting, the small spider crab crouches on a stone. Although camouflaged by algae, its body, legs, and claws are clearly discernible on the bare rock. As if aware of the bad choice it's made, it quickly seeks a new shelter. But it's too big for this crevice. For other, smaller crabs, this might be a palace. In the crevices, we find some of the rare inhabitants of the undersea world. The small black squat lobster hides under the sponges. It's a very timid creature and a rare sight. The ear shell is a well-armored and fast snail. We interrupt the salp, enjoying a late dinner. The painted comber looks as if it's fast asleep. All small fish, striped blenny, damselfish, and sea scorpion, like being close to the safety offered by crevices. The peaceful night on the sandy seabed will not bring much food to the brown tube anemone. This habitat is better for the acetubliari algae. They look like sunshades and are in fact very simple one-cell organisms. This is a rare sight. They're being blessed by a white bream. Only the two-banded sea bream remains on night watch. Rogač Harbor has always been seen as the port of Grohote. It's Šolta's major harbor. Rogač Bay is well sheltered by Gradina Point to the west and Bad Point to the east. In an even better sheltered and deeper cove, we find Nečium. The residents of Split found peace here, as did Marko Marulić, who often visited the remains of St. Peter's Church. One of Diocletian's fish ponds was located here, near a coast rich in fish. On our journey eastwards, we enter the port of Stomorska. Protected by Pellegrin Point, it's one of the island's oldest settlements. Wars have always brought destruction. From the time when the people of Solin fled from Avar attack to Šolta, and in the Middle Ages that saw attacks from Omiš and the Venetians. The remains of a fortress built in the late Roman times above Stomorska bears testimony to such times. The remnants of the past now stand in silence. Sheep and goats graze in their vicinity, and in the summer, the sound of cicadas fills the air. Stillness prevails in the depths. In the Bay of Seine, at a depth of 10 meters, there's a small opening, wide enough for just one diver to pass through it. Behind this narrow opening lies a 15-meter cave. Its true beauty and size can be seen by looking upwards. The cave's seabed lies at a depth of 25 meters and is covered in sand. At the bottom, there's a horizontal exit, and the good visibility in the cave is also interesting. Perhaps the freshwater source at the bottom is the reason for the water's clarity. Here, the timid forkbeard is a frequent visitor. The outer vertical walls are life in motion. The magnificent Gorgonian. The spiny antennae of the spiny lobsters reveal that they are found on more favorable spots. And a little further up, if you look a little closer, you may see a well-camouflaged scorpionfish. But perhaps the most interesting discovery is the rare and fragile Alcyonium. The tips of this crag are shallow plateaus where different life forms prevail. Due to the large amounts of sunlight, we also encounter algae and starfish in search of sea urchins. The spiny starfish usually has 5 arms. This one is lacking 2. However, they'll soon be replaced with new ones thanks to its regenerative abilities. Before swimming to the surface, we encounter a large, aggressive spider crab. Gornje Selo lies beneath Vela Straža Peak. In the village center, we find a church. The village cemetery also attracts our attention, with its placard that reads, "For travelers whose fate it is to rest in all eternity on Šolta." The undersea world here is almost untouched. Steep crags like the ones found at Kosmat Point fall to depths of over 80 meters. In these depths, along a shoreline created more than 30,000 years ago, we find numerous caves and inhabitants that have yet to be revealed. The undiscovered depths await for us in their stillness and beauty, an atmosphere that also prevails on land in this less known region of Šolta. This is Livka Cove. The crag is covered in red algae so special that the entire community was named after it. The Red Algae Community. Here, the algae are predominantly Corallinacea, or Pseudolithophyllum expansum. Following the topography of the crag, we dive down to the sandy seabed. On the seabed, we encounter a rare gorgonian and one endemic to the Mediterranean, the white sea fan. The seemingly uneventful and flat seabed reveals an unusual attribute typical to octopi. Once its cover has been blown, this octopus will try to swim away from us. But due to lack of oxygen in its blood, octopi tire easily. Hiding is always the best option. This octopus has squeezed itself into a crevice on this plateau, and it's a tight fit. But the rule of thumb for octopi is, if the eyes will fit, the body will follow. Life on the seabed is somewhat unusual. These colonies of sea worms look like white trees. The soul reclines on algae. The brown comber struts his stuff. The black-faced blenny protects his territory. An empty urchin shell and two blenny that call it home. Like dandelions in the spring, Parazoanthansis axonella coral surprise us with its beauty and fragility. The Sabella fanworm sways in the current and heralds the arrival of a visitor of the shallow waters by day, the John Dory. He's a beauty to behold. Like a king, he sails through his realm in search of tasty morsels. Perhaps he's waiting for the fisherman's offerings to Teuta. Like her, he too is slowly becoming a local legend. Vidova Gora, or Mount St. Vitus, at 778 meters above sea level, it's the highest peak on the island of Brač and the highest of all peaks on the islands of the Adriatic coast, and is overgrown in dense pine forest. From here we look into the interior of the island and neighboring Hvar, from where, according to legend, the Black Bull brings storms to Bol, a village crowned by the Dominican monastery and the famous Zlatni Rat, a pebble beach locally known as Aphrodite's pleasure spot, and considered one of the most beautiful beaches in Dalmatia. At Bol's easternmost point we find a Dominican monastery, which safeguards the island's sacral heritage, a church and a museum. The pre-Romanesque church of St. John guards its entrance. Beneath it stretches one of the most beautiful beaches in Bol. Freshwater fills the numerous cisterns, the realm of local geckos. From the monastery, the path leads through Bol and its daily life onto the most prominent seascape on the Adriatic, the Zlatni Rat beach. The waves wash the smooth pebbles on Zlatni Rat. The currents shape the tips, making it into a unique phenomenon. At first glance, diving into the depths off Zlatni Rat does not seem like a demanding endeavor, and the seabed is not very promising. The seabed is unstable, so that there's an absence of algae and other fixed sea organisms. The odd blotched pickerel finds its way to these slopes washed by the waves. The seabed beyond the pebbles is more stable and allows for algae to grow. And wherever algae is found, the sea life is more abundant. We encounter the odd spotted sea urchin. The females have adorned themselves with rocks and algae and pieces of sea urchin shell. An axillary wrasse hides under the rock. A spindle snail searches the seabed rich in organic waste. The timid Myxicola has dark feather-like tentacles it uses to catch prey. The strong current is an ideal spot for filtrators. A file shell extends its tentacles from its sturdy armor. We swim past colonies of Poseidonia towards sea hunters with impressive survival abilities. We encounter hundreds of minute snails covered in algae engrossing in the most important task of the day, feeding. Algae and sea vegetation are the first link in the food chain. A school of salp nibble at them. Wrasse have a preference for the same bill of fare, supplementing it with shrimp and invertebrate. The rainbow wrasse feeds off smaller animals on the seabed. The Mediterranean wrasse belongs to the same family, as does the Symphodus rostratus and the horned blenny. And then there are those that hunt even smaller morsels, plankton. The mass hunt for microscopic organisms takes place in areas where there are strong sea currents. The hunters are the stunning sabella. It's interesting to see how the sea animals are both the hunter and the hunted. The hunt is all the more interesting as the prey cannot escape. It's carried by the currents while the predators spend their whole lives hunting from the same spot. The coral worm and even the penshell rely on the current for food. The same can be said for the translucent clavellina sea squirt. The seawater and food enter through a large opening and exit through a smaller one. For some species, the sand and silt are an infinite food source. This green ribbon-like organism is a Bonellia viridis, an unusual worm that feeds off silt. It is the female of the species. The male measure only a few millimeters and live as a parasite inside the female. Mullets are more active hunters. They use their long feelers to search for food, small fish that live in the sand. This one is burrowing so energetically that it has attracted rainbow wrasse, two-banded sea bream, and brown combers. They'll seize what the mullet misses. In the sea depths, nothing goes to waste. The remains of one hunter's prey present a feast for snails and the hermit crab. The tripplefin looks unwell. The worms scavenge for morsels. Soon they will become the prey. The rainbow wrasse go into action. A moment of inattentiveness brings death. In the sea, anything is possible. One of the better hunters is the murex shell. Its favorite prey are sea snail. We observe one such hunt at snail speed. The sea urchin, protected by its spikes and the owner of a mouth with 5 powerful teeth with which it chews at the algae, is a tasty morsel for the spiny starfish. Who knows how long it stalked its prey and how many more hours it will need to consume it. In order to do so, the starfish turns its stomach outward in order to ingest its prey. For many sea hunters, night is their time of day. The red sea bream makes use of our lights, which have attracted numerous worms. The cuttlefish is also out hunting for food. It searches and changes color. The hunt itself is brief. Its 2 tentacles shoot out like arrows and then pull the prey in. Armed with suckers, its prey stands no chance of escape. The weaver also make use of our lights. Concealed in the sand, anything that passes close to its mouth is potential prey. It seems that the scorpion fish's eyes were bigger than its stomach. The tail of a fish hangs from its mouth. A well-camouflaged octopus searches the crag. It lands on a fish but manages to escape. Now it has to go into overdrive. It pulsates, changes colors, and prepares to strike. Its prey is now a larger fish, and the struggle may last longer. It's no easy task extracting yourself from an octopus's deadly clench. In the seclusion of a hole, it will finish off its prey and eat it. Many hunters, skilled at mimicry, are to be found in the blue depths. Brač is the third largest island on the Croatian Adriatic. Once Illyrian, maybe Greek, and later Roman, Brač was called Brenton, then Elephos, and later Constantine Porphyrogenitus mentioned the Croatian name Brața. The oldest settlement on Brač, Škrip, is found inland. According to legend, the Trojan hero Antenor arrived here with his companions, bringing olives, vines, and cicada. We encounter numerous shelters built of rock on our trek to the prehistoric Kopacina cave near Donji Humac. It is in the Kopacina cave that the island's oldest prehistoric human remains were found. Brač was never an island of urban centers or majestic palaces, but it does abound in churches, and these sacral beauties with unusual bell towers were erected in 23 parishes. In Donji Hum, we found the church of St. Fabian and Sebastian, and the oldest fresco on the island. The lace-like bell tower in Ložišće was erected based on the drafts made by the Croatian sculptor Ivan Rendić. And then there are the churches in Milna and Pušišće. The Benedictines brought culture and education to the island, and as a result, in Povlja we find the Povalska listina, or Povlja document, and the Povalski prag, or Povlja threshold. Cultural and historic monuments which bear the signature of the master stonemason Radonja. St. John of Poval, who could walk on the surface of the sea, also lived here. We choose to dive under its surface at the Golubinja cave. The rocky shores of the Golubinja Cove look like the crumbled sea in the recent times. Heaps of rock under the sea can be an interesting haven for its residents. One of our more frequent diving companions is the spiny lobster. The contrastive features of the sandy seabed and the crag are an opportunity for unusual encounters. The slender goby loves the sand and not the crag. The red-mouthed goby prefers to observe its surroundings from the elevation of the crag. In the sand, we find the remains of the shell of the rare turban snail. A typical resident of the sandy bed, the cuttlefish, uses the hole to its advantage. They offer threefold protection: an opening, camouflage, and a place to entrench. We're surprised by yet another resident, the sole. The sand is littered with food remains and morsels. The auxiliary wrasse were the fastest, but the sea current will also bring the scent of meat to the conger eel. At first, it's reluctant due to the presence of divers, but eventually, it leaves its hole and heads for the prey. We swim upwards along the crag with its numerous openings and crevices. A sea skyscraper with an assortment of tenants. Almost impassable paths and heaps of stone, the symbol of Brač, overgrown in thick underbrush, lead to the island's ancient monuments. One of the oldest is Lovrecina near Postira on the coast. The old baptistry has been preserved and restored. Traces of frescoes still adorn the walls. Old Croatian pre-Romanesque churches are the island's silent jewels. There are dozens of them. The Church of St. Elias near Donji Humac, the Church of St. Michael near Gornji Humac, the Church of St. Michael between Selce and Sumartin, and others. A pine tree grows out of the more recent Church of St. Peter in Nerežišće. Its interior is adorned with works of art. Brač also abounds in numerous secluded hermitages, desert dwellings such as the Dragon's Cave, cut into living rock to create unusual reliefs. The most remarkable hermitage is Blaca, built in the 18th century by the Glagolite priests from Poljice. The Blaca Hermitage was a remarkable undertaking and marks the evolution of the Ljubovotica cave into a cultural and sacral center. Its interior safeguards a library, an astronomy collection, ancient weaponry, and a hearth. The well-proportioned rocks of the Blaca Desert offer a magnificent vista, even today, and the water in its cisterns are a source of life. Rising above it is the Church of St. Mary, the patron saint of Blaca. Today, the hermitage is deserted, a reminder of times when the laborers and fishermen of Brač had a deeper faith, one that enabled them to undertake life-threatening sea ventures in spite of ill winds lashing the open sea. The sea also has its hermitage and desert. In the Lučice Cove, an underwater cave with two channels pulls us down into the deep. Vertical caves such as this one are the most unwelcoming environment for underwater sea life. The crags are bare as they do not expose to the currents. Algae sparsely populate the higher areas, which are exposed to the sun. The first channel falls to a depth of 42 meters. In this quiet stillness, we also find particles of various organic and inorganic waste. We're now in the second channel. It opens to a chamber of complete darkness and disturbed particles as we search for the presence of life. A rare resident of the almost deserted cave is the leopard blenny, rarely seen outside caves or holes. We pass rocks to reach the cave's mouth. Life outside the Lučica cave is different and richer. We encounter a colorful rainbow wrasse, and in the crevices of the shallow waters we witness a turf war. A small male striped blenny has mistakenly assumed that the meal in front of the residency of a large blenny is a free-for-all, only to discover that the spot is already occupied. The small blenny is not a welcome guest in the home of the black-faced blenny either. The rainbow wrasse makes use of all the commotion. The blenny is left with an empty stomach, but still has a home and a hearth. The coastline of Brač is rich in romantic coves. Aside from working the land, the islanders are seamen and fishermen. They frequently sail out to known fishing grounds. Sumartin, on the island's easternmost tip, was the last fishing village to develop. The Church of Our Lady of Angels, an adjacent monastery, was erected by Friar Andrija Kačić Miocic. It was also a place of residence for the patriot and philosopher Friar Andrija Dorotić. The image of Mario Puratic from Sumartin can be found on a Canadian banknote. He invented the power block for net signing. Nowhere on the island do we find such a large number of fishing boats in respect to the number of residents as we do in Sumartin. A school of blotched pickerel race ahead of us. These timid fish swim up and down the crag. Whitebaits search for the safety of the crevices. They are well acquainted with the know-how of the local fishermen. What remains are fixed organisms, such as the Dendroterus grandiflora sea slug. It opens its palm-shaped feathery gills to catch small food particles. Only the striped blenny does not flee. The Hypsildorus sea slug strolls along in search of food. Its colorful body is not edible and wards off potential hunters. Nothing disrupts the unusual peace that prevails. Everyone is resting and preparing for the approaching night hunt. Swimming near the spiny lobster, which tests the sea from the seclusion of its hole, is its greatest enemy, the painted comber. It devours young lobsters. A clean sea rich in currents offers an explosion of color in the coral world. The soft coral Alcyonium coralloides. The thick, leathery branches of this soft coral resemble fingers. We have encountered individual colonies, but here they're spread out like a forest. The largest and most dazzling is the yellow sea fan. It resembles an olive tree woven in lace, and judging by its side, it's a unique specimen. With the image of this cnidarian waving goodbye, we swim to the surface. Brač today remains an island of shepherds and land laborers. But it's no longer an island lacking paths and water, as the renowned Croatian poet Vladimir Nazor once wrote. The Cetina River gives the thirsting island running water, replacing the rainwater and pools that once sustained life. The island's stone quarry has offered building materials since Greek and Roman times. One of the most famous edifices to be built using it was Diocletian's palace. The stone cross gracing the mythical Vidova Gora peak stands like a symbol for the island. Night falls on Brač. It's a night without moonlight. We pass fields of sleeping Poseidonia and reach the seabed, where we awaken a wrasse. Pockets of Poseidonia offer a safe haven to numerous species. Even a young gilthead conceals itself in its embrace, waiting to grow into the queen of the deep. Not all fish swim away from us. Our lights have attracted a school of young whitebait. Their safety lies in their number. They bravely follow us, swimming above the sandy seabed where danger lurks. The mullet poses no threat. It feeds on creatures buried in the sand. The real danger is almost not discernible from the seabed. A large flounder, perfectly camouflaged, lies still in ambush. The flounder is neither a fast nor an agile swimmer. Its hunting strategy is based on the element of surprise rather than wearing out its prey. It pounces at anything swimming too close to its mouth. Its prey hardly has time to comprehend what has befallen it. As we move on, we encounter a cunning hunter, the sea brass. It has a different tactic: speed and cunningness. The basic underwater elements, sand, sea, and rock, have thousands of untold tales to relate. Woven into a unique veil of existence, brought to life with exquisite shades, shimmering shells, and elegance in motion. From the sea, we discern land, the soaring, rugged Konavle cliffs. No islands rise in front of them, yet they are not barren. They abound in vegetation. Euphorbia dendroides, Centaurea ragosina, Limonium anfractum. Some of these species are endemic to the Adriatic coast. At the foot of Mount Snezhnice, rising 1,243 meters above sea level, lies the Sokol Tower. It offers a panoramic view of Konavle. In the Dubrovnik dialect, Konavle was the word used for canals, and refers to the canals used to bring water to Dubrovnik and Cavtat. These expansive, fertile fields and hamlets once belonged to the nobility of Dubrovnik. The homes of the laborers were of stone and modest, similar to the ones dating back to Illyrian and Roman times. The northern valley ends with the Konavle cliffs, from where we will dive into the depths. We follow the sea bream along the crag in its search for food. The blue depths abound in fish. The currents are strong here. Damselfish are a frequent sight. The algae sway with the current coming in from the open sea. Even the sea scorpion uses its pelvic fin as an anchor. Life on the crag is turbulent and diverse. Our heroine is the timid grouper. With a sad-looking face, she approaches us, curious. Groupers frequent the waters off the southern Adriatic coast. They're large and greedy hunters. Groupers are bisexual. They are female during the first 12 years, and then later male. A related species and perhaps one of the most beautiful Adriatic fish swims around the cracks in the crag, the swallowtail sea perch. And while the sea worm exercises, we move on to the sandy seabed and to the other residents living beneath the Konavle cliffs. The Silurides latus is a frequent visitor. The blue rim of its shell makes it unique. Nearby, we encounter a lobster with huge claws. Cuckoo wrasse and forkbeard often hide in the crevices. Another rare species of these waters is the golden grouper. It lives at a depth of up to 200 meters and feeds off fish and cephalopod. Encounters with the sharp-toothed conger eel are never pleasant. With snake-like motions, it retreats into the safety of its hole. Savudrija is one of the largest towns located on the coast. It lies to the south in the Župa Bay and on the Rat Peninsula, where we also find the Tiha Cove. A mild climate, rich vegetation, and a beautiful and tame shoreline attracted Illyrian tribes. The Romans named it Civitas. In the 6th century, it was the seat of the bishopric. This is the St. Nicholas Parish Church, where we find the work of the renowned Croatian artist Vlaho Bukovac, who was born here. Savudrija is filled with sacred and other valuable artifacts worth admiration. On the waterfront in front of the Ducal Palace, we find a monument to Baltazar Bogišić, the founder of the local library, archives, and museum. And the St. Blaise Church within the walls of the Franciscan monastery. The St. Michael Poliptych is the work of the Croatian artist Vicko Lovrin. A path leading from the church and through the pine forest takes us to the cemetery and the Račić Mausoleum, the work of sculptor Ivan Meštrović. Narrow streets with steps, scalinate, lead back to the shore and to the view of the three islands, Supetar, Mrkan, and Bobara, also known as the Savudrija Crags. Supetar once housed Dubrovnik's Lazaret. Its foundations are preserved to this day. Our dive into the depths beneath Savudrija reveals ancient secrets. Sunken vessels bear witness to the history of seamanship. Their ill fortune lends insight into lost ancient civilizations. In the 1st century BC, Roman vessels transported dolia, huge ceramic vessels similar to Greek pitoi used for wine and oil. Today, they're home to this conger eel warrior. Up to 3,000 liters of liquid could be stored in dolia. These take half that amount. Nearby we find amphora. Covered in shellfish and algae and inhabited by fish, they blend into their surroundings. They are pink in hue like this scorpionfish, or bluish-gray like the conger eel. Once filled with wine and oil, today they lie on the sandy seabed, protected from inquisitive visitors by a metal cage. Once, long ago, they contained the fruits of the fertile fields of Konavle. The riches of the Konavle fields are visible all around us. pomegranate, nuts, almonds, figs, olive trees, laurel, and rosemary. Abundance that grows and flourishes nurtured by water. Vegetables are grown in the gardens and fields here. In the vineyards, autumn is a season of fruition of labor and the picking of ripe, sweet grapes. The red grapes will be served as must, and then later wine. The white grapes have been saved from extinction and oblivion. The grapes are ripe and sweet and ready for picking. The Malvasia is a wine culture that has been revitalized in this region and dates back to the times of the Republic of Ragusa. A sweeter fate awaits these grapes. They will first be dried, then used to produce prošek, a dessert wine once served at the tables of the Dubrovnik gentry. To the adventure seeker, sunken ships are always a challenge. The Kaiser Franz Josef I rests on the seabed off Prevlaka. This famous cruiser sailed for only 27 years. We dive into the depths, to this ship's midsection, between its two masts. It reclines on its starboard, rusty and surrounded by fish. The Romans would say, "Sic transit gloria mundi." Launched in 1890, this vessel sailed the North and Baltic Seas, docked off Crete, in Lisbon, and Asia. Today, it is silent and helpless. Adorning its stern is the name of the great ruler, Kaiser Franz Josef. Living amid the layers of algae and various living organisms are the rare sea residents. Sulfur sponges and scorpionfish. The wreck reveals the construction of this once well-armed vessel. This was once where the ship's cannons were housed. All cannons were removed in the last century. We swim on to the bow. The second mast is a habitat to yellow sulfur sponges. Their color reminds us of the yellow background of the Habsburg coat of arms that vanished long before the demise of this ship. We take a peek into the ship's interior on our way to the bow. After the capitulation of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the ship was given to the French and anchored at Janica Bay. It foundered and sank one stormy night on the 17th of October, 1919. The red Mediterranean cardinal fish are a contrast to the gray vessel. It was armed. Explosives still lie near the anchor at the ship's bow. We swim to the surface, aware that we are the first to have filmed this sunken Austro-Hungarian vessel. Almost 90 years have passed since the sinking of the Kaiser Franz Josef I, yet the everlasting beauty of the shoreline remains to this day. Diversity in flora and fauna, the rich waters and fertile soil have made life easier here. Traditional folk dress was worn in small towns such as Popović, with its stone family houses and palaces soaked in tradition. White starched head covers turn the women of Konavle into queens. They're worn for the Linjo folk dance, accompanied by the Lierica. The Potkolo is the oldest and most frequent folk dance performed here. This form of merrymaking dates back to a time when life was harder, but more precious. Night falls on Mount Molunat, a night without moonlight. The only light shines from our torch, which illuminates the depths and the translucent stenophore. We take an electric ray by surprise. It tries to flee by burrowing into the sand or by swimming away. The electric ray is a distant cousin to the stingray and sharks. It can produce a current of up to 300 volts. It uses it to kill or maim its prey. Electric rays bear 5 to 10 young, each about 10 centimeters in length. A lizardfish lies buried in the sand. Indigenous to the warm waters of the Mediterranean, it is a recent resident of these waters. A group of cardinal fish and other fish slowly swim above the sand. In the prevailing darkness, they look like they're getting ready to hide. The sand dunes are deserted. Stingray come to spawn in the soft, fine sandy bed of Molunat. The sop is so tranquil that we can even touch it. The only spot on the scorpionfish safe to touch is under its beard. This rare and beautiful fish hides in a Posidonia colony. On the surface of the sand, we encounter the smallest octopus to fit into a shell. When it grows up, it will swim like this. A small Siluritis arctus clumsily climbs the crag. This unusual swimmer is not a fish. We follow it with our camera. It lands in Posidonia. As it settles, we make out an old acquaintance, a spiny lobster. To the south, the maquis along the shoreline becomes uniform. The strawberry trees are filled with fruit. On our way to Molunat, we see old picturesque houses in Pizzati. In front of them stand preserved threshing floors. Molunat is the southernmost village on the coast, situated in a beautiful sandy cove that offers a safe haven. The shoreline abounds in rich flora. Petroragia, fragrant sage, Centaurea rupestris, moss, ephedra, and Plumbago europea. Ostro, on the Prevlaka Peninsula, is Croatia's southernmost point. An Austro-Hungarian military base once existed here. The remains of what was once a towering fortress attest to this. Its magnificence is a memento to the men that built it. The border region is home to numerous rare plant species. The Lathrius megalanthus, Cilia autumnalis, Saturea montana, Dianthus ciliatus, Cephalaria srad, fern, Plantango cornuti, and Saccharum ravenea. Our last dive takes us to the blue depths of the open sea. We dive into the dark depths, into the unknown. Diving into the open sea is one of the most difficult dives. We're looking for sunken islands, underwater banks. There, the sea life is similar to the one found along the shoreline. They are also visited by creatures of the open sea in search of prey. We find ourselves among mixed company. An unusual starfish, white, transparent algae, and the lace-like eudendrium. Two friends touch one another. The red and pink starfish. Deciphering the meaning behind the touch, we leave to the experts. The poisonous sea worm. The ornate wrasse, Thalassomum pavo, a colorful fish found only in the southern Adriatic. We mimic the damselfish. They too are not used to the open sea. We dive deeper and encounter swallowtail sea perch. Sphaereniae appear as if manifested by the sea itself. Their long, slender bodies resemble torpedoes. Their wide mouths and sharp teeth tell us they're dangerous hunters. The European barracuda can grow to a length of 120 centimeters. The other fish hide from this greedy predator. A piece of wood bobbing on the surface of the sea will often be the only safety young fish can look to. The yellow umbrella of the Cothlerosa tuberculata. A small horse mackerel is entwined and concealing among its tentacles, but they too are prey to larger mackerel. In the infinite blue depths, we witness dramatic events. Jellyfish are a beautiful sight despite their bad reputation. The Rhizostoma pulmo, also known as the sea lung, resembles a fairy tale queen dressed in white and purple lace. As it disappears into the sun, a school of tuna swim towards us. Tuna are the most powerful hunters in the Adriatic, true open sea fish. They can grow to be 4 meters long and weigh half a ton. The shape of their body and fins tells us they're fast swimmers. They hunt other blue fish. Their prey are bogue, sardines, anchovies, and whitebait. Sole survivors of their attack are left confused and dazed, but unbelievably lucky to have survived this greedy predator. Our journey to the blue depths of Croatia's undersea world has revealed one of splendor and beauty, one that needs to be preserved.